The next item that students would encounter in our community is a menu. For instance, this could be in a drive-through or in different places throughout their community. This is something that they will encounter their whole lives and will require them to connect words to pictures and numbers. In this way, the required literacies are the numbers, the shapes, the colors, the letters and their meaning, the meaning to the words, and the pictures having meaning in reference to the numbers, the letters, and the words. Basically, this means that the students would need to have an understanding of the letters and the words that they make up so they could read it, the symbols and the dollar signs, and the numbers to understand that that's what they were placing for. In the classroom, they would need to be able to understand that letters and numbers could work together and would be seen in various contexts. This might be found when they're reading books or when they're working on projects as a group that are all very important to their overall understanding. Another couple of things that students would encounter in our community include doggy pickup stations, park signs, and trail instructions. These are all different signs that the students would most likely encounter as they were growing up and living in this community. In this way, it's very important that they understand what they are and what the different things stand for. For the doggy pickup station, they can see that it can be helpful and instructional if the family has a pet. This is something they would most likely be familiar with. It does require, however, the students to have a required literacy of the colors, usually meaning that these signs are green and Draper, letters, numbers, lines or shapes, pictures, and symbols having meaning. For instance, the children would need to recognize the letters here, the words, and the meaning that the letters have in the context of the words. They would also need to understand the picture, and that is telling part of the story as well. If they didn't know how to read, but they could see the picture and recognize it, they could start to deduce some of the information from the sign based on that. In the classroom, this might happen a lot when they're reading books or looking at pictures and words that might not necessarily have knowledge of, but that they would be able to figure out based upon what they can read from the entire sign and not just the text itself. The park sign is important as well because this can help the child realize where they are, and it can be informational as it can also help them read different signs in different places that they are and not just this park. The required literacies include the color, meaning it's probably going to be about the same color and shape in all of the Draper City parks, the letters and the meaning, and the sentence structure, as well as the numbers. If there were hours on the sign, that would be a really important piece of the puzzle for the kids to understand. Understanding that the numbers 10, a dash, a 2, and then saying that those were the hours wouldn't make very much sense to the student if they didn't have an understanding of what that meant. This means that they would need to read the sign and understand that that was talking about hours and that the text was just assisting that. In this way, there's more to read on the sign than just the text itself, meaning there can be the picture, the city logo, the name of the park, and possibly the hours. These are all very important for the child to understand, and in the classroom might have a similar meaning. The Draper City Trail Park is important because trail instructions are very common in this city and for a lot of kids who might live in this city. This means that the children need to understand that this is what it means. Understanding that the symbols and the arrows, once again, just like the library, have meaning, would help them to understand that the picture is telling a story that the text might not say. This is important because not all signs are going to have words like the doggy pickup one. Understanding that the bike, the hiker, and the horse are all involved in that, and that yield to is the text that they can read, would all be very confusing to a child if they didn't understand it. Making sure that they understand that the arrows are showing the movement and the yielding, explaining what yielding might be, and explaining what all the different pictures represent would be important. This means that the child would need to have a good understanding of letters and their meaning, words, symbols, and picture reading, not just reading the text itself. After this, I chose to look at another community. The second community I looked at was the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and our ward in Draper. Within the ward itself constitutes the building and a lot of other cultural aspects that go along with this. Indeed, this is very much a community that the children, if they lived in this area and were members of the church, would be a part of. For instance, for me, this is something that I am a part of in my community. I chose to look at the text of the hymn books, the church sign, the hymn songs, the prayers in church, scriptures, the church program, bulletin sign, the hymn sign, names over the doors, and coloring books. These are all things that are encountered often in the church setting and in this community that the children would come into contact with.